Before the video begins, I'd like to state a few things. This video contains some pretty disturbing stories coming from real 911 operators or people affiliated. So please be respectful in the comments, as these aren't made up and it's probably a very touchy subject for them and some other people who have this job that might watch this video. The point of this video is to show you some of the things that a 911 operator has to go through and to show how hard it is to do what they do. Some of the stories are very short, some are longer. I'll also be explaining where I've been and what's going on at the end of this video. That being said, let's begin. Number 1. I was a 911 operator in Mobile, Alabama the day Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast. We started getting a lot of calls from New Orleans and the Mississippi Gulf Coast for some reason. I guess they started routing to us after all the 911 centers to the west of us started going down. Anyways, I got a call from a woman who said she was trapped in her house on Gordon Street between Florida and Law. I was confused at first because we have a Florida street in Mobile, and after checking and double checking and not being able to find her address, I asked her what city she was calling from and she said,
"I'm in New Orleans."
I tried to route her to New Orleans 911 and New Orleans Fire Department, but I couldn't get through. She started screaming and said the water was coming up into the attic where she was. I told her to find something heavy and break the attic vent out so she could get onto the roof, but the vent was too small for her to crawl through. She sat down and started crying. I told her I would stay on the line with her for as long as she wanted me to. I stayed on the line and listened as she cried, prayed, cussed, and prayed some more. A little while later, I could hear her struggling to keep her head and phone above water. Then the phone went dead. To this day, I don't know if she lived or died. I quit 911 3 months after Katrina. Number 2. A daughter called on Christmas Day last year, reporting that her father had locked himself in the back shed after an argument with the mother and he was trying to hang himself. Told her to bust down the door and cut him down with whatever she could find. She was probably about 15 years old and was yelling at her little sister to go back into the house and get some scissors or a knife to cut down the noose as he was swinging from the neck. The thing that sticks with me the most about the call was that she was not panicking and was able to convey my instructions to her obviously freaked out family members around her to help and save her dad. By the time her father was cut down and the noose loosened from his neck, the paramedics and police arrived on scene and the call was terminated. Shook me up a bit by the fact that a parent can attempt this in front of his family, let alone on Christmas Day. Number 3. This one is probably the hardest call I've ever taken. The phone rings and there is a little girl 8 to 10 years old and she is screaming and crying, "Daddy is dead." I can't calm her down at all. She keeps crying on the line, and in the background I can also hear 2 other small girls crying. I was watching our call logs and more calls are coming in that are for gunshots fired. What had happened is, 3 guys had decided to break into a house and thought it was empty, so they rang the doorbell to make sure. The dad startled them and they shot him. So the mother runs out to see what happened and she got shot as well. The guys took off, leaving the 3 girls aged 8 to 12 to call 911. We're not allowed to disconnect a phone call until police or EMS are on the scene. So my heart was breaking for a small family that had lost both parents in one sad accident. I listened to the girl for 6 minutes and 37 seconds before police arrived on scene. The good news is that the mother lived. Number 4. I have a story about having to stay on the phone with a young man for about 40 minutes, maybe a little more. He had a very disturbed man break into his home and with a loaded shotgun pointed at his face the entire time, demand that he called the police. He wanted a suicide by cop. I had to listen to this young man urinate himself, almost throw up, and beg me to keep him alive. I haven't dreamt about it in a long time, as it was several years ago, but it stuck with me. Number 5. Got a call a few years ago. Lady's house was on fire and her daughter was stuck in a back room. The flames were too much and too high and she couldn't get through them to get to the girl. So I got to sit on the phone and listen to 1, a little girl burned to death, and 2, the mom scream and cry as she watched. It was years ago and the sound still haunts me. Number 6. Had a guy who called in reporting his son was unconscious and not breathing. He was as calm as he could be about it too. Said he left the room for just a second and when he came back he found him this way. But he wasn't panicked, wasn't worried, just talking like he was telling me about his day. Kept trying to get him to start CPR and he treated it like a chore. Turns out, the kid started crying and the dad got frustrated and beat him to death. Kid was only 2. Number 7. Christmas Eve night, I answered 911 for a hysterical lady who was crying so hard she couldn't breathe. I asked her what was going on and she told me these exact words.
My boyfriend and I, we were watching a movie. I fell asleep. I woke up and he wasn't here.
I thought this was a little odd, so I said, "Okay, ma'am, do you know where he may have went?" She wasn't done. She said,
I found him in our closet. He hung himself with our bed sheets.
I walked her through cutting him down and starting CPR, when, in the middle of it, he starts making this long, raspy exhale that sounds exactly like something from a horror movie. It's the rest of his air leaving his lungs. She starts getting hysterical again, begging him.
Oh my god. Oh my god. He's breathing. Please breathe, baby. Please breathe.
But I knew that's not what he was doing. Police, firemen, ambulance got there, and of course the guy was way dead. I felt so bad for that woman. That's really the only call that has ever stuck with me. Number 8. I was a 911 caretaker / dispatcher in Portland, Oregon and received a call from a strung out girl. Story was, she said her boyfriend had been doing meth for 3 days and owned a lab. She was screaming that he had wiggly purple worms in his arms and there was blood everywhere. Turns out that they were his veins. He was literally out of his gourd on crystal meth and tearing at his flesh and ripping out his veins. I did not want to live my life on their night shifts taking calls like that, so it wasn't long before I switched professions. Number 9. 1979, New York City. Got a call from a crying child, a little boy, saying his mom and dad were fighting and his dad said he was going to throw the mom out of the window. I could hear a terrible fight going on in the background, woman screaming, things breaking, man yelling, etc. The poor kid didn't know his address. We didn't have the technology for caller ID and would have to use reverse telephone books. A trace would take forever. Anyway, while I'm trying to get the address, I hear a horrific scream and glass breaking. A few seconds later, the other operators in the room are getting calls about a woman lying in the courtyard who came out of a window. That was a very sad one. Worst of all is that I'm sure someone else in the apartment building must have heard the fight, but no one called for help until it was too late. Poor kid. Working 911 in New York City during the 70s and 80s was a nightmare. The city had a very high crime rate and shit technology. Number 10. I once answered a call where 2 brothers were arguing over drinks and one of their girlfriends or wives was over. Anyways, the brothers are drinking heavily and one pulls out a gun and shoots the other one. When I received the call, I can barely get the guy's address over him screaming to send the paramedics. He just keeps shouting, "Where the fuck are they?" over and over again. All the while I'm trying to stay calm and give CPR instructions and tell him to tell the female there to stop the bleeding and put firm pressure on the wound. Furthermore, medical cannot go on scene until police have secured the firearm. Listening to the pain in someone's voice while they are screaming for help kind of haunts you. Both of them had to be around 30 years old. I couldn't imagine killing a family member. Number 11. I've been the IT guy for a law enforcement agency going on for 7 years. Our current 911 supervisor pulls calls off of our 911 recorder, but some of the previous supervisors would not do it. This, of course, means that I had to pull 911 calls whenever there was a big incident or a legal request came in. I would listen to the calls, as you should do, to make sure that we got all the correct radio traffic when requested and of course, all of the call. The one that sticks out to me happened around 3 years ago. I was actually repairing some equipment in our dispatch center when the call came in and I had to immediately pull the recordings as we all knew it would have been requested. I listened to it all happen and did my best to assist. An 18-year-old called in hysterics and asked for an ambulance because his mom was shot. We, of course, dispatched immediately, but they were in the middle of nowhere and the closest ambulance was 30+ minutes away. As the call continued, we got him to tell us what happened. He had pulled out his hunting rifle to clean it before going hunting the next day. It was an older style bolt-action rifle with no safety and an extremely light trigger pull. He had pulled it out of the case and accidentally hit the bolts on the side of the table, which caused the gun to fire. The bullet hit the mom in the stomach while standing less than 30 feet away. The father and son were both attempting to stop the bleeding and the son immediately called 911. At first, you could faintly hear the mom in the background saying,
It's okay. You didn't mean it, baby. It's okay. I love you both.
She just repeated this over and over. The father was praying quietly and the son was sobbing and giving us all the info as we tried to assist. The sounds of that call will always haunt me. The son just shouted over and over near the end of it, "Mom, God, Mom, I'm so sorry, Mom, don't die, please." The mom made it nowhere close to the ambulance arrival. The dispatchers were cool and collected and worked like an amazingly well-oiled machine during the whole call. When the call was over, we all just sat there in silence. Dispatchers are the unsung heroes. The emotional and mental toll that it takes on people that do the job and do it well is crazy. Hey everyone, thanks for watching the video and I hope you know more about having that sort of job now. So, before you exit out of the video, I wanted to just talk to you for a few minutes about submitting your stories, why I've been gone, and thanking you for 300,000 subscribers. So, first off, I'm going to be doing a Home Alone or home invasion type video soon with someone who's a huge inspiration to me. So if you think you have a good one, please email it into corpsehusbandstories@gmail.com. It'll be on screen and in the description as well. Please take your time to write it out as best as you can. It helps a lot and you'll have a few days to send it in before the video anyway. Sending pictures and stuff helps too if possible. Side note, if I sound a little bit weird, it's because I woke up a couple hours ago and I have like a stuffy nose and allergies right now, so yeah. So on to the next topic. I just wanted to, as usual, explain my absence to those of you that don't have me on social media. So you all know I've been getting on and off sick for months now. I thought I was good and I was really happy to get back on track. I had that last video out only 3 days after the one before and everything. Then I started getting these weird symptoms and really bad pain in my leg. I went into the doctor, he thought maybe it was some infection or something, so they gave me medication for what they thought it was. Now, here's the thing. They told me I wasn't supposed to sit down too much, that I'm not supposed to look at a screen, and to avoid sunlight. So basically I couldn't sit down to edit, record, or anything. I got tired of it, so I started thinking to be productive, I could just lay down with a laptop and at least find stories for when I can record and stuff. But wow, they really meant that I shouldn't look at a screen because I would get instant headaches as soon as I started to read and it just made it impossible. So a bit of time goes by, I get off the medication because it's not helping anyway, and then I did this video. My leg still hurts, just not as bad, and all the other symptoms have cleared. So I have no idea what they're going to try and do next, and I don't know what my uploading will be like, but as of right now I can deal with the pain in my leg and I'm not on the medication so I can read again. Now that that's out of the way, I fucking hate complaining. On a brighter note, thank you so much for 300,000 subscribers. It always sounds so cliche to say thank you for milestones like that, but I just don't know any other way to express it. Through all of my sickness and odd uploading and car crashes, you guys have still been sharing my videos and making up for it, which I can't ever thank you enough for. I really look forward to making more stuff for you all to enjoy and spreading awareness on things that are important like this. I'm thinking I might do another Q&A for 300k, but I'm not sure yet because of the problems I mentioned earlier. But I might just start a hashtag on Twitter like #AskCorpsey or something for it, so make sure you're following me on there, although I'll probably just make a video. So that's about it. Thank you so much for listening to that whole thing because you obviously really care about me if you did. Please be sure to check out Eden, the female narrator in this video and a good friend of mine. Her links will be in the description. She's extremely talented and just a really cool person. Also, I'm still following anyone on social media who buys any kind of merch from the shop I have. So if you've bought a shirt or something in the past, or if you plan on it, please tweet me or Snapchat me a picture of you wearing it and I'll follow you on everything. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and have an awesome day.